Whatever your view is on life, who you are, where you are from, and why you are here, one thing is certain. Your physical body and non-physical mind or consciousness is on a journey of discovery. We must never stop investigating, never stop experimenting, never stop questioning. No fear, only love. No anger, only compassion and forgiveness.
'Cause this is just the way it's meant to be. This is just the way it's meant to be. This is just the way it's meant to be. This is just the way it's meant to be.
If you've been watching my videos for a while, you'll know that I never exaggerate. You'll also know that for the last year, my predictions, assessments and interpretations have been absolutely accurate. Now, more than ever, I need your help. Unless we work together, we are doomed. I need your help because we need to reach millions with this video. And with the big platforms and the mainstream media having banned me, I can't reach those millions without you. I believe this is the most important video I will ever make and the most important you will ever see. You have to share it. You have to do nothing for the next few days but send this video to everyone you know or don't know who has an email address, and send it to every journalist whose email address you can find. Do you remember that video in which Bill and Melinda Gates sat and smirked as they talked about how the next pandemic would make people sit up and take notice? Well, I think I know now what's going to happen. We all know that the evil elite, the Agenda 21 and Great Reset promoters, have all along intended to kill between 90% and 95% of the world's population. Sadly, I fear it's probably too late to save many of those who've had the vaccine. Millions are doomed, and I fear that many will die when they next come into contact with the coronavirus. But something has gone seriously wrong with the plans of the elite. And the result is that now those of us who haven't had the vaccine appear to be in serious danger too. We need to keep our immune systems in tip-top condition by eating wisely and taking vitamin D supplements, and we may need at some point to keep away from those who have had the vaccines. They are, I believe, now a very real danger to the survival of the human species. For longer than I like to think about it, I've been warning about the dangers of the COVID-19 vaccines. I know that they shouldn't really be called vaccines, although one official definition has been changed to accommodate them. But if I call them gene therapy, then the people who we're trying to reach, who've been told that they're vaccines, won't know what I'm talking about. Almost a year ago, I warned that the reason that the coronavirus risk was being exaggerated was partly to set up a mandatory vaccination program. The COVID-19 fake pandemic was created in part to find an excuse for the vaccines, rather than the vaccine being created as a solution to the alleged threat posed by COVID-19. I've been warning for months that the experimental vaccines are dangerous and produce many potentially deadly side effects. The celebrities and many doctors are wrong in providing reassurance. I think I was right to suggest that the vaccines could kill more people than COVID-19. But it now seems likely that the vaccines may be responsible for the deaths of hundreds of millions who haven't been vaccinated. My long-term thinking has always been that the COVID-19 fraud was planned with a purpose: to kill as many of the elderly and the frail as possible. And of course to introduce mandatory vaccinations. That's what I said in my first video in mid-March 2020. That's still available on brand YouTube. There was, of course, also the plan to destroy and then reinvent the economy to satisfy the requirements of Agenda 21 and the Great Reset. Days after that first video appeared, I was furiously attacked on the internet. My Wikipedia entry was dramatically changed. Details of all my books, TV series and columns were removed. I was described as a discredited conspiracy theorist, though no one ever said who I'd been discredited by. I made a video explaining just how the Wikipedia entry was altered in order to demonize and to discredit. Many others who've questioned the official line on COVID-19 have suffered the same way. And of course, the BBC and the national press have joined in by attacking those who dare to question the official line by airing unacceptable truths. But now I fear that the genocidal lunatics, the horsemen of the apocalypse who planned this fraud, are leading us into Armageddon. I've long believed that the architects of this fraud expected that millions would die. However, I now believe that the evil minds who created this fraud dramatically underestimated the danger of the experimental vaccines, which they've been promoting with such vigour. Millions who've received one of the COVID-19 vaccines may die as a result of those vaccinations. I'll explain how and why in a moment. The fraud started, of course, with the wild predictions made by Ferguson of Imperial College. Ferguson's a mathematical modeller with an appalling track record. The people planning the fraud knew that Ferguson's predictions were absurd. They must have known that his track record was embarrassingly bad. But nevertheless, his predictions were used as an excuse for the lockdowns, the social distancing, the masks, and the closures of schools and hospital departments. This was all utter madness. The logical thing to do was to isolate individuals who had the infection, in the same way that people with flu are told to stay at home, and to protect the most vulnerable people, largely the elderly with heart or chest disorders. But the politicians and the advisers did everything wrong, and those who questioned what was happening were demonized and silenced. The fact is that the immune systems of healthy people are boosted through interreactions with others. Healthy children and young adults have very powerful immune systems. It's really only the elderly and the frail who are most likely to be threatened by a new virus. And yet the world's politicians and their advisers deliberately led us into a mass vaccination program. The public were originally assured that only through a huge vaccination program could they possibly win back some of their lost freedoms. This was always dangerous nonsense. However, the experimental vaccines, which were approved so quickly, were never going to do what people were told they would do. The vaccines weren't designed to prevent infection or transmission. The vaccines don't stop people getting COVID-19, and they don't stop them passing it on if they do get it. The vaccines merely help limit the seriousness of the symptoms for some of those who are injected. That's not what most people believe, of course. The vast majority of people who've been vaccinated believe they've been protected against the infection. It was another fraud. Apart from the rather important fact that they don't do what people think they do, there are three huge problems with the vaccines. The first problem, of course, is that these experimental vaccines have already proved to be desperately dangerous, killing many people already and producing serious adverse events in many more. The size of this particular problem can be judged by the fact that even the authorities admit that probably only 1 in 100 vaccine-related deaths and serious injuries will be reported. It's impossible to estimate how many will die of allergy problems, heart trouble, strokes, neurological problems, and so on, or how many will be blinded or paralyzed. There's a list on my website of people known to be injured or killed by the vaccine, and it's a terrifying list to read. The death toll is terrifying, but most authorities keep insisting that these are all coincidences. When someone died within 60 or 28 days of a positive COVID-19 test, even if the test result was false, they were automatically treated as a COVID-19 death to push up the figures. But when healthy young people die within hours of having a vaccination, the deaths are dismissed as just coincidences. What a lot of tragic coincidences there have been. The second problem is the immune system problem known as pathogenic priming or a cytokine storm. What happens is that the immune system of the person who's been vaccinated will be primed to respond in a very dramatic way if that individual comes into contact with the virus in the future. The result can be catastrophic, and this is what I fear will happen in the autumn and during next winter. The people who've had the vaccine are going to be in real trouble when they next come into contact with the coronavirus. Their immune systems will overreact, and that's likely to be when there will be lots of deaths. Patients haven't been officially warned about this problem, although the evidence was published in the International Journal of Clinical Practice for October last year. The paper's entitled Informed Consent Disclosure to Vaccine Trial Subjects of Risk of COVID-19 Vaccines Worsening Clinical Disease. But there's been no informed consent for patients, and I suspect that most doctors remain ignorant of the risks. Patients are being told that there are no dangers with these vaccines. The elderly and those with poor immune systems are particularly likely to be killed. And what will give you a poor immune system? Wearing a mask, being isolated from other people, and not getting enough sunshine are three obvious causes. Drinking too much alcohol and smoking too much tobacco while under house arrest don't help. The extra deaths will, I fear, probably occur in the autumn, when vaccinated individuals are most likely to be exposed to the virus. The coronavirus spreads most rapidly in autumn and winter. As a result of the epidemic of illnesses and deaths that will take place, governments will start promoting the next round of vaccinations. There'll be much talk of mutations, of course, and new, hurriedly prepared experimental vaccines will be produced and heavily promoted by celebrities who don't know anything about medicine or vaccines. Doctors who understand the dangers but who have doubts will, as usual, be silenced. Amazingly, I believe that the people behind this fraud were aware that this would happen. It was part of their evil plan. They knew that there would be an increase in deaths in the autumn and the next winter. They always planned to blame the deaths on a new version of COVID-19, one of the many thousands of mutations which will be around by the autumn. I've long suspected that they would eventually be promoting vaccinations every couple of months, or even more frequently, every month or so. My original use of the word hoax in March 2020 was intended to criticize the response to a flu-like viral infection. The response, I believed then and believe now, was wildly exaggerated. I suspect that this was what Bill and Melinda Gates were smirking about when they implied that we might not take the first pandemic seriously, but that we would treat the next pandemic far more seriously. And I believe that they, and all the others involved in this fraud, assumed that they would be perfectly safe because they wouldn't actually have the vaccines. I suspect that many of the elite and the more important celebrities were given a placebo instead of one of the experimental vaccines. They were never at risk of being killed by the vaccine, being severely injured by it, or developing pathogenic priming, and then being incredibly vulnerable the next time they came into contact with the virus infection. I think the elite thought they were safe. I think they devised a plan that would result in millions of deaths, but which would not harm them. But I believe they made a huge, crucial mistake. And this brings us to the third problem, a problem I don't think they expected. This problem has just been outlined by Dr. Geert van den Bosch, who's a very eminent vaccine specialist. Indeed, I was originally sceptical about what he said because Dr. Bosch has previously worked with Gavi and the Gates Foundation. He's the last person in the world who could be described as being opposed to vaccination. Dr. Bosch has pointed out that the vaccines which are currently being used are the wrong weapons to use for this war against a virus infection. Disastrously, by giving vaccines to millions, we're teaching the virus how to mutate and to become stronger and more deadly. Trying to devise new vaccines for new mutations simply makes things worse because the scientists can't possibly get ahead of the mutated viruses. And the people who have been vaccinated are now sharing mutated viruses with those around them, and the mutations are becoming stronger and deadlier. Ending the lockdowns will be perfectly timed to ensure that new mutations of the COVID-19 virus are spread far and wide. There's another associated problem too. Normally our bodies contain white blood cells which help us defeat infections. Cells called NK cells, the NK stands for natural killers, help kill off invading bad cells. Once the NK cells have done their work, our antibodies appear and clear up the mess. However, Dr. Bosch explains that the COVID-19 vaccines are triggering the production of very specific antibodies which compete with the natural defences of the individuals who've had the vaccines. The natural defence systems of those who've been vaccinated are being suppressed because the specific antibodies which have been produced by the vaccine just take over. And these specific antibodies, the ones produced by the vaccines, are permanent. They're there forever within the bodies of the people who've been vaccinated. The disastrous result is that the natural immune systems of the tens or hundreds of millions who are having the vaccines are being effectively destroyed. Their immune systems will not be able to fight any mutated variation of the virus which develops within their bodies. And those mutated viruses can spread out into the community. I believe this is why new virus variations are appearing in areas where the vaccine has been given to lots of people. The bottom line is that giving the vaccines will give the virus an opportunity to become infinitely more dangerous. Every vaccinated individual has the potential to become a mass murderer because their bodies are becoming laboratories making lethal viruses. And worse still, some of the vaccinated individuals may become asymptomatic carriers, spreading lethal viruses around them. And the people who've had the vaccine won't be able to respond to the mutations because their immune systems have been taken over by an artificial defense system given to them by the vaccine and designed to combat the original form of the COVID-19 virus. The vaccinated individuals are going to be very much at risk when the new mutations start to spread. Their bodies are permanently and exclusively geared to defend against a form of the virus which is rapidly becoming out of date. Giving new vaccines won't help because the mutated virus will not be vulnerable. The scientists who are making vaccines won't be able to get ahead of the mutating virus. This should have been foreseen. It's the problem which explains why flu vaccines often don't work. The politicians and their advisors will lie and blame those who haven't had the vaccine for the development of new mutations and for the rise in deaths that's going to take place. But if Dr. Bosch is right, and I believe he is, then it's the vaccinated individuals who are going to threaten mankind. There'll be a major threat to anyone who's been vaccinated. But there'll also be a major threat to the unvaccinated, because the viruses they're shedding are going to be more dangerous than the original one. We are in very dangerous territory. If we don't stop this vaccine program now, then it's no exaggeration to say that the very future of mankind is at risk. Is this what was in the mind of those trying to sell us the Great Reset? I don't know. Maybe their aim all along was to kill us all. Or maybe their evil plots just got out of hand. In the UK, Ferguson, Hancock, Whitty and Vallance have always seemed to me to be entirely the wrong people to lead the nation's response. In the USA, I believe that Fauci was the wrong person. I feared all along that they were picked because they're the wrong people. Everything they've done's been wrong for us, but right for them and the evil cabal promoting Agenda 21 and the Great Reset. The insistence on suppressing free debate has led us directly into this abyss. None of these people should have been allowed such control over our lives, but by suppressing all questioning opposition in a way that's never been done before, and suppressing the facts, the mainstream media and the internet giants have made things infinitely worse. Do they think they're going to be safe? There's a real risk that instead of just killing 90 to 95% of people, as the evil elite originally desired, they could kill everyone by mistake. They could wipe out mankind. We have very little time to save ourselves. We have to boost our immune systems, and ironically, it's possible that we'll need to keep away from the people who've been vaccinated. I'll do a video in the next week or so on how you can boost your immune system. Now, do you see why this is the most important video I've made, and I believe the most important video you've ever seen? I can't reach the mainstream media, which simply suppresses the truth and refuses any debate or discussion. YouTube, for example, won't take videos which question anything promoted by the evil establishment. So send this video to doctors and to journalists, to friends and to relatives. Share it, share it, share it. Maybe we can persuade people in power that they're not immune to the disaster which lies ahead. This will be my last video for a few days. This one's so important. I just want everyone to watch it and to share it. I hope Dr. Bosch is wrong. I hope I'm wrong. But everything in this video needs investigating seriously. And if these fears are not publicized and investigated, then we will know for absolute sure that the plan is to kill as many of us as possible. There can be no other conclusion. Thank you for watching An Old Man in a Chair. Please spread my videos about on other platforms. For the record, this channel's not been monetized. None of my videos ever has been. Thank you to Mohammed Butt and Brand YouTube for providing the platform, and congratulations to Mohammed Butt and to Brand YouTube, because I believe they've been in trouble with YouTube recently. Always a sign that you're on the side of the angels. Don't forget to read the light paper on thelightpaper.co.uk. Don't forget to watch my friend Dr. Colin Barron's amazing videos. Listen to Richie Allen's radio show, and please visit my websites, vernoncoleman.org and vernoncoleman.com. Finally, although it may feel like it at times, please remember that you are not alone. More and more people are waking up, and when they are awake, they will stay awake. Distrust the government, avoid mass media, and fight the lies. Thank you for watching An Old Man in a Chair, and please, please, please share this video with everyone you know and everyone you don't know. It's our only chance.
Thank you for listening to the China Jedi podcast.
Set aside your filters of bias.
The truth is learned, never told. Do your own research.
May the smile be with you.